After my family turned the birth of my first child into a chaotic, disrespectful circus that left me feeling violated, ignored, and emotionally wrecked, I decided to go radio silent for baby number 2, and now I'm the villain for setting boundaries. When I was 21, I was getting ready to welcome my first baby, a little boy. I was scared and excited and full of anticipation for the moment I'd finally hold him in my arms. My husband and I had planned everything as best we could. We agreed we'd tell family and friends once we were already on the way to the hospital, just to avoid the pressure of people waiting around. I didn't want that added stress. Labor was something I wanted to experience with some peace and control. My mom and a few close family members made it to the hospital once they found out, and they came in to visit me during the early stages. It was comforting to see their faces. But once I reached the point where it was time to push, I made it clear to everyone, nurses, staff, and even my OB, that I only wanted my husband and my mom in the room. No one else. There was one more boundary I had firmly in place, and I had been very clear about it. I did not want any students involved in my care. As a teacher, I had students in the community and even in nearby programs, and I couldn't stomach the idea of someone I may have once taught or passed in the hallway seeing me at my most vulnerable. I was told over and over, "Of course, that won't be an issue." But then Saturday morning rolled around. That's when things started to feel off. One after another, doctors kept coming into my room. They'd introduce themselves as Dr. So-and-so and say they were there to check me. I didn't think much of the first one, routine, I assumed. But less than 10 minutes later, a different one came in with the same introduction, saying he needed to do the exact same thing. At that point, I started to get suspicious. Why would I need another cervical check so soon? I said no. Then, about 20 minutes after that, another guy walked in, again calling himself Dr. XYZ, asking to check me. I stared at him and asked, "Wait, are you an actual doctor, or are you a student practicing?" He hesitated. His voice stumbled. I asked again more firmly, "Are you a licensed doctor, yes or no?" Finally, he admitted, "No, I'm not." I told him to get out. At that point, I was angry. I called in the nurse and let her have it. I told her clearly that 3 different students had entered my room in under an hour claiming to be doctors, when they absolutely were not. I reminded her that I had explicitly denied student involvement from the start, and that repeated checks weren't just unnecessary, they introduced a risk of infection. I told her that from that point forward, no student was to touch me or enter my room unless they were fully licensed and had my consent. I thought that was the end of it. Hours passed, and around 3 p.m., I was finally in position. Legs up, lights on, surrounded by sterile drapes and harsh fluorescent lighting. You know the position. Vulnerable doesn't even begin to describe it. Suddenly, I saw people filing into the room. 7 men and 3 women, 10 strangers, all wearing scrubs and masks, quietly slipping behind the curtain at the foot of my bed. They didn't say a word. They just stood there and watched. I froze. My stomach dropped. My face must have gone completely pale, because I saw my mom's eyes go wide. Then she exploded. "What the hell is this?" she yelled, her voice booming through the room. "Get out. Get out, all of you. How dare you invade a woman like this during childbirth? This is not a free show." She was livid, kicking them out, shouting about how shameful it was for them to just walk in like that despite knowing full well my wishes. No one argued. They just silently filed back out. And still, I had to push. The moment my son was born should have been joyful, sacred. But I felt robbed. And it wasn't just that group of students. It was what came after. At some point during delivery, I was given an episiotomy, cut open without my consent. Despite specifically telling my doctors ahead of time that I did not want one unless it was a true emergency, they made that choice for me. I wasn't asked. I wasn't warned. I found out after it happened. And not only was I cut, I received over 20 stitches. I felt violated. I felt powerless. I felt betrayed. Not even 20 minutes had passed. My epidural had just been removed, which, by the way, didn't even work properly. I had managed to drag myself into the shower to clean off, and then climb back into bed. I was exhausted. My whole body was trembling with the post-delivery shakes, if you've had them. You know what I mean? And I hadn't even had a moment alone to look at my baby properly, let alone nurse him, eat, or catch my breath. One thing no one warned me about before I went to the hospital to have my first baby was that I wouldn't be allowed to eat once I was admitted. I had no idea. I mean, I thought maybe there'd be restrictions during labor or right before pushing, but I didn't know it meant nothing at all for hours. When we got to the hospital around 7 p.m. on a Friday night, I had barely eaten all day. A few crackers, maybe a handful of grapes, but nothing substantial. And then suddenly I was hooked up to monitors, my 4 was in, and that was it. No food until after delivery in case of emergency or surgery. No one tells you just how long labor can last. For me, it was 20 hours. 20 hours of contractions, pressure, fear, exhaustion, and ice chips. That's it. 40 hours in total with no real food, no real rest. My body was drained. And still, somehow it pulled through. I delivered my baby boy on Saturday and brought him safely into the world. I was so proud. I was so empty. I was starving. So when someone, and to this day, I still don't know who it was, came into my hospital room with a box of those mini, half-moon-shaped crumble donuts and placed them on my tray, it felt like divine intervention. Like a gift from the universe. I didn't ask questions. I didn't hesitate. I reached out, grabbed one, and took a bite. And listen, I don't care what anyone says, that donut? It was the best damn thing I'd ever tasted in my life. Just as I was about to grab another, my older brother, we'll call him Chad, swooped in and ruined the moment. Chad had recently graduated from a medical assistant program about a month earlier, and suddenly he thought he was Grey's Anatomy. He saw me eating the donut and snatched it out of my hand, literally pulled it away mid-bite and grabbed the whole box. I blinked at him, shocked. I had just gone through labor. I had stitches. I was shaky, sleep-deprived, and physically wrecked. I had done the hardest thing I've ever done, and this man had the audacity to rip food out of my hands like I was a toddler who'd gotten into Halloween candy. I screamed at him. I was hangry and exhausted and hurt. I shouted. I gave birth. I didn't just have open-heart surgery. Give me back the damn donuts. He shouted back. You can't eat those. There's too much sodium. It's bad for you after labor. And then this grown man, this adult man, ran out of the room with the box of donuts like he was saving me from myself. I sat there in disbelief. Did that really just happen? Before I could even process it, my mom chimed in, and instead of standing up for me, her daughter, who had just given birth and hadn't eaten in 40 hours, she said, "Oh, he means well. You know how he is. You should just let him feel like he's doing something good. We don't want to upset him and have him go into one of his anger episodes." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was the one sitting there with stitches, shaking, leaking from every part of my body, starving, and she was more worried about Chad's feelings than my physical needs. That moment crushed something inside me. It was like no one actually saw me. Not as a person. Not as a mother. Just a vessel that delivered a baby, and now I was supposed to disappear. But wait, it gets worse. My mom then pulled out a bottle of sparkling cider. Something I guess she'd brought for a little post-birth celebration. She poured me the first glass and handed it to me. I didn't think twice. I chugged it like I was stranded in the desert. I was parched. It was delicious. And the moment it hit my stomach, her face dropped. Apparently, she had planned some grand, sentimental toast, and by drinking the cider, I had ruined it. She sighed dramatically, gave me the angry mom glare, and said, "Well, even though the original toast is now ruined, everyone just go ahead and drink your cider." After all the chaos of the birth, the invasion of students, the ignored boundaries, the donut incident, the ruined cider toast, you'd think things would have calmed down. But no. That was just the beginning. People started asking to hold the baby. I was uncomfortable. I had barely had him in my arms. I hadn't had time to stare at his face or memorize the shape of his fingers. I wanted those first moments to be mine, sacred and quiet. But it was like my body didn't even belong to me anymore, and now neither did my baby. I was so exhausted, and when my mom reached over and scooped him from my arms, I didn't even have the strength to protest. I just watched him go. Then, without asking, my mom passed him to her best friend, someone I wasn't even especially close to. That's when my grandma lost it. Apparently, she believed she was entitled to be third in line right after my husband and my mom. A rite of passage, she called it. And when she realized she'd been skipped, the passive-aggressive muttering started, quickly escalating into full-on criticism. By the time she finally had my son in her arms, she wasn't admiring his face. She was berating me, telling me how disappointed she was, how disrespectful I'd been, how I should have known better. Then my grandpa chimed in, not to de-escalate, but to throw fuel on the fire. He went off on my mom for passing the baby to her friend first, and within seconds, the entire room exploded. It was like a family reunion turned courtroom drama. Voices raised, fingers pointed, everyone posturing and trying to win some invisible trophy for most important person in the baby's life. Meanwhile, I was sitting in my hospital bed, torn, bleeding, shaking, still hungry, holding back tears. I felt like I was unraveling. I had just been through so much, and no one, not a single person, seemed to care how I felt in that moment. They were all too busy arguing about who should have held my son first. Then something in me snapped. I screamed, and I mean full-on screamed. "Give me back my baby!" Everyone froze. And that silence only made me angrier. I turned to the nurse and said through gritted teeth, "I want everyone out of this room.
Now."
Everyone except my husband. They all started backpedaling. "There's no need to overreact," someone muttered. But I wasn't overreacting. I was setting a boundary, probably for the first time that whole day. I refused to even look at them anymore. The nurse stood by my side and asked if she should call security for anyone who didn't comply. That was enough to get them all moving. They left, finally. And the second the door shut behind them, I felt like I could finally breathe. My husband came and sat by my side. I looked down at my baby, now safe in my arms again, and felt both peace and heartbreak. I had missed out on those first sacred hours. My body had done the miraculous, and instead of support, I was met with chaos. After that, I didn't let anyone else in until the next day. And even then, it was just my mom, and only because I needed help getting discharged. Now that I'm pregnant with my second child, I had hoped things would be different. But of course, my grandma brought it all back up. She told me how disappointed she was that she didn't get to hold my firstborn earlier, that my grandpa never got the chance to hold him that day before I kicked them all out, and how I should make better decisions this time around. Then, she had the nerve to drop the emotional bomb. "But I guess that opportunity is gone forever, since your grandfather's passed on." I stared at her. I felt the heat rise up in my chest, but I didn't let her guilt me. I stopped her mid-sentence and raised my voice, not yelling, but strong and unshaken. I said, "For you, that day was horrible for you. You all ruined my birthing experience." I was tired, hungry, emotional, and overwhelmed, and instead of offering comfort, you all turned the delivery room into a circus. A power struggle, a performance. You all made what should have been the most beautiful, empowering moment of my life feel like a nightmare. After everything that happened during my first birth, the chaos, the disrespect, the complete disregard for my boundaries, I knew I couldn't do it again. I wouldn't do it again. So this time, with baby number 2, I've set my rules early, clearly, and without apology. I told everyone, family, friends, whoever needed to hear it, that this time, only my husband will be with me. There will be no calls on the way to the hospital. No mass messages announcing, "We're in labor." No anxious waiting rooms full of people fighting over who gets to hold the baby first. I will give birth in peace. I will bond with my baby without being rushed or pulled in 100 directions. No one will know this baby is born until we are being discharged and heading home. Then and only then I will reach out to loved ones individually when I feel ready for visitors. Unsurprisingly, my mom took this personally. She immediately assumed I meant she was excluded. I reminded her, gently but firmly, that when she had her children, she didn't want her mother in a room either. Her exact words, which she's told me more than once, were, "It's a private moment for a husband and wife." But now, somehow, I'm cruel for wanting the same? It was the same energy when I announced this pregnancy. I sent out a sweet photo of my son cuddled up with our cat, captioned, "As much as you love him, I hope you can love the next one just the same," followed by a picture of my ultrasound. It was simple, personal, heartfelt. Friends and family were overjoyed. My phone lit up with messages of love and congratulations. Except for my mom. Her response? I don't know what to say. And then she proceeded to call around, venting her disappointment and disapproval of the pregnancy to anyone who would listen. She even called my younger brother, who hung up on her because he didn't want to hear it. She called my grandmother too, looking for someone to side with her, and when she didn't get the reaction she wanted, she yelled at her. She didn't speak to me for the first 4 months of my pregnancy.
Why?
Because in her eyes, the announcement wasn't special enough for her. Because I didn't stage some elaborate reveal or make her feel like the center of attention. It wasn't about the baby or about my growing family, it was about her feelings. Again. And now, even after all of that, she still talks like she's going to be in the delivery room. Like all these boundaries I've set somehow don't apply to her. I've had to remind her again, no, you will not be there. This is not about punishing her. This is about protecting myself. My peace. My healing. My baby. Of course, in her version of the story, I'm the villain. I'm the ungrateful daughter, depriving her of the birth of her grandchild. She's playing the victim, and her friends are calling me selfish. I'm bracing myself because I know the moment I have this baby, the backlash will come. The guilt trips. The whispers. The comments about how family should be there, how I robbed them of something.
But this isn't about them.
This is about reclaiming what I lost the first time. My voice, my space, my right to have a sacred birth experience without the noise, judgment, and chaos of others. And if standing up for that makes me the villain in someone else's story,
So be it.
I'll still be the hero in mine.